And we're live here on the College Sports Rush YouTube channel. It's every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Myself, Jimmy Ott, along with Paul Stone, talking college football. Our last college football conference preview Thursday. We start for real, week 0. And we'll give it out our best picks and analysis for the week 0 games coming up this Saturday. Then every Tuesday and Thursday during the regular season, we give out picks and analysis as well. Paul, let's start off in the who's going to make it from the group of 5, and it's a group of 5 conference preview. So we put all of the others in the barrel and kind of had a lot of research on this one. So maybe had some selectivity when it comes to these. And Paul, let's start off with your first pick, and that is to make the playoff. And well, you're going to go with the team from the group of 5 that made it to the playoff last year. Well, the biggest thing when you look at Boise State this year, and the price is plus 150 at Bet Rivers to advance to the college football playoff, is no Ashton Genty. So you say, man, they might have to fall back to the pack. But quarterback Madison is back, and 14 or so starters return as well. Spencer Danielson in his 3rd year, 20-8 in 2 seasons in Boise. And, you know, when you look at the competition for that AQ representative in the field of 12, Tulane maybe, Memphis maybe, Toledo maybe, James Madison. Who might be that competition? But Boise's the shortest price, and that's who you like at plus 150.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this was kind of a process of elimination for me. You know, when you're looking at this group of 5 representative in the 12-team playoff, you know, first of all, you mentioned the player, the most notable player that Boise lost, and it was a quite notable one, a guy in Ashton Genty, who last year rushes for 2,601 yards, 29 touchdowns. He's the 6th overall pick in this past spring's NFL draft, going to the Las Vegas Raiders. So that's a lot of productivity to replace, and they certainly will try to replace it in that running game by committee, I'm sure. But they've got a lot of players back as well. But first of all, looking at kind of how I arrived at it, it was more as much a process of elimination. So you look at the leagues that are going to produce the team that's going to be the group of 5 representative, and I eliminated 3 of those leagues fairly quickly. I don't think the group of 5 representative is going to come from the MAC. It could certainly, but I don't think it's going to. I don't think the group of 5 reps going to come from the Sun Belt. Again, it could. And I certainly don't think it's going to come from Conference USA outside of Liberty going undefeated against an extremely easy schedule and the other teams in contention kind of having some warts and blemishes. So that led me to 2 conferences, either the Mountain West Conference or the newly named American Conference. And in the American Conference, you look at the teams that have kind of been the top guys the last couple of years, being the Tulane Green Wave and the Memphis Tigers. And both of those teams are losing quite a bit of personnel, including top-notch quarterbacks. You know, starting with the Tulane Green Wave, their redshirt freshman quarterback, only a 1-year starter, but Darian Mensah was very good in that one season. Last season there in New Orleans, he's off to Duke of the Atlantic Coast Conference. And then Memphis's quarterback, this was a bigger blow, a lot of production, a 4-year starting quarterback in Seth Hennigan. And this is a good trivia question and answer that might come in handy someday, Jimmy. Seth Hennigan threw for over 14,000 career yards there at Memphis. He is the 13th all-time leading passer in passing yardage in NCAA history. So Heth Hennigan threw for a lot of yards there at Memphis. He's out the door. So those 2 teams are going to be down this year, in my opinion. Texas San Antonio, they're going to have a prolific offense. They got a lot of pieces back, including their southpaw quarterback, Owen McCowan, son of former NFL quarterback Josh McCowan. But defensively, man, they got nobody back. I think they're going to be a sieve on defense. I think teams are going to score at will on the Roadrunners. So I don't see them as a team being able to sustain, you know, a 10-2 or 11-1 type regular season. So that directed me to the Mountain West, looking at Boise, the obvious loss of Genty. But again, they return a lot of pieces, including their quarterback, Maddox Madsen, who did a good job last year. Obviously, he had a lot of help from Mr. Genty, but you look at their schedule, and so much of this comes down to the scheduling. And they start with the road game, a tricky road game, 9 days from today in Tampa, Florida. They play the South Florida Bulls of the American Conference. This game, the line came out, at some stores maybe 3 months ago. Boise initially about an 8.5 point road favorite. That number now down to 6. So Boise only a 6 point favorite over South Florida. And then Boise will certainly be an underdog the first Saturday in October when they travel to Notre Dame to play the Fighting Irish there in South Bend. I currently project Notre Dame to be a 17 point favorite. So that's a likely loss. We can, mark that down as a loss. Although last year, Northern Illinois, I don't think anybody expected them to go into South Bend is 28-point underdogs and win. So it's not a total given, but that's probably going to be a loss. Need to win that first one. Other than that South Florida game on the road to open the season, and then the game in October, early October at Notre Dame, Boise's going to be favored in every other game more than likely, and could be favored by double digits in all of their other 10 remaining games. So they don't have that many losing games. A lot of teams are favored by or favored in 8 or 9 or 10 of their games, project to be that. But a lot of those games are 7 or less. Boise doesn't have any games like that really, other than the 2 we mentioned, because that conference has just lost so much personnel and their power ratings are down. So this is a Boise team that I think is in good position to win the conference. Looking at Phil Steele's preseason magazine, on the first team, Boise, and this is not a great handicapping metric probably that many people are using, but it does make a point. Boise's got 12 players listed on the first team of the All Mountain West preseason team, 7 on offense, 5 on defense. Boise has a total of 12. No other school in the conference has more than 4 on the first team. So Boise is the class of this league. I think they're going to win the Mountain West. They're going to get the championship game if they're one of the 2 top teams in that league on the blue turf of Albertson Stadium. They'd be a tough out there. I like Boise State to make the playoff at plus 150, available today at Bet Rivers.
Not a whole lot of 50-50 games on that schedule, like you talked about. More than a 2-touchdown dog at Notre Dame, and so many of their games double-digit favorites as well. So Boise State might not be the level that they were in their heyday. With Kellen Moore and, man, those offensive linemen and Pettis and some of the other players that they had, the running backs, where they were going on the road and, beating Georgia, Ole Miss, Virginia Tech, or Oregon. But they are clearly the class of the non-Power 4 teams. So once again, they represented it, and they are a heavy favorite. You saw those odds at Bet Rivers. It's a big dip down after Boise State. Let's go to the MAC. That's right. Everybody loves a little MACtion, and especially when they get to midweek games later in the year. And you look at the MAC odds to win it at Bet Rivers, and well, Toledo is the favorite. So Toledo is the favorite, and its second choice is Ohio, and then you get to Buffalo, the third choice. That's my pick right here. Second-year coach and Pete Lembo. And Lembo did a nice job last year. They went on to a good season, but not only that, but what I really look at first-year coaches is, especially these mid-majors, how do you maintain any roster from the previous year? So they held on to a little bit, but how they progress over the course of the season. And there's no doubt the Buffalo Bulls got better and better as the season went on. They won their last 4 regular season games, and they won the bowl game as well. A total of 5 wins in a row to end the season in his first year. So you have a lot of momentum. Not only does that do that gets you feeling good, but it also helps you to do what is the impossible in the group of 5 programs, and that's retain some of your roster. And they retain a lot. So there's a lot of good things going on at Buffalo right now. They add Taquan Roberson, the quarterback who spent some time at Penn State and also Kansas State. And the schedule that Toledo is the favorite, they avoid Toledo in the regular season. And talking about getting better at the end of the season, the next two closest odds-on choices to compete for the MAC championship, Ohio and Miami of Ohio. They play them at home on the last two games of the regular season. So the schedule is favorable as well. Returning players, which is unheard of, a lot to build on in the first year. And I love the way they got better as the season went on. I'm not sure if they'll be favored if they get to the MAC championship game, but at plus 350, I think that's a good price. I'm going to find it hard to believe if the Bulls are not in that MAC championship game in December.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo's got one of the more experienced returning teams in the MAC without question. And as you mentioned, Pete Limbo, the head coach there at Buffalo, now in his second season, you would certainly expect some natural advancement in year two for a head coach. And you also mentioned Taquan Roberson, a guy who signed with Penn State, as you also mentioned, out of high school. He was a top 20 type quarterback coming out of high school. To this point, he's maybe been a little more of an athlete than a quarterback, but he's played some at the position, and I certainly think it's feasible to think that he has saved his best for last and is, probably put a little polish on his passing game. So Buffalo, certainly a team in that conference that, along with Toledo and Ohio and maybe some others, going to be vying for that crown. But like you said, if they get to the conference championship game there in Detroit, one of those two teams, you've got a real good price, real good ticket in pocket, and some flexibility there. So I like your selection here of the Buffalo Bulls to win the MAC.
I know, Paul, it had to stick out at you when you're doing your research for the MAC this year. A guy who was really good dual threat quarterback, and transferred to a power forward league in a power four league in the Big 12 and down in the state of Texas, and now he's back at Miami of Ohio, and that's Taquan Finn. What kind of impact will he have coming back?
I tell you, it's really curious. Not that he transferred out of Baylor, because obviously Sawyer Robertson got a chance when Finn went down early and didn't look back, so he wasn't going to play there. But man, Miami of Ohio does not have any offensive talent back around him. So it's a curious head scratching decision for him to go to a place where he might be kind of in a one man fight against the defense, so to speak. But he's got his reasons, whether it be NIL, whether it be relationships with somebody on the coaching staff or whatever. You know how those things can work out with individual players. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he's the kind of guy that at his peak, he is a dual threat guy that can run the football. And sometimes an offense that doesn't have many weapons, it certainly helps to have a guy like Finn who can do things off script. But I'm just wondering if he has enough help there, to make the RedHawks a viable contender this year in the MAC.
All right, the Toledo, the team that is picked to win the MAC this year, the Rockets, and their win total is 8.5 at Bet Rivers. And well, the head coach in his 10th year, has never had a losing season. 28 wins the last three seasons for the Toledo program. I believe he took over for Campbell, who's at Iowa State. Has he been there that long? But the Toledo Rockets have clearly been the class of the MAC over the last decade or so, and then even beyond that. So here they are. You got to pay a little juice at over 8.5, but over 8.5 wins is minus 152 available right now at Bet Rivers Ball.
In today's college football with the NIL and the transfer portal, I often say, and others say it as well, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. But Toledo, they have a modest but aggressive NIL program. And it's almost amazing. It's an anomaly in today's college football. But I read that they did not lose a single player in the offseason that they projected to be a starter this year.
Wow.
So read that they didn't lose a single player. They added 15 transfers, and four of those guys transferring in are on one of Phil Steele's all-conference preseason teams, one of the top four teams there in the MAC. So not just adding 15 bodies, but some of those bodies being players who are going to contribute at a high level. So Toledo, not losing a potential starter to the portal, huge for a group of five school, rather, in today's college football. Certainly there are questions surrounding Toledo's defensive front seven. They lose a lot of personnel there. Got some new guys they're going to have to step in and fill the void. But outside of that defensive front seven, the rest of their lineup looks really rock solid. Starts with their 6'3", 245-pound quarterback, Tucker Gleason. He's a guy who last year threw for 24 touchdowns, passed for 7 more, or threw for 24, rushed for 7 more. So he's a physical guy, runs the football, plays kind of with the chip on his shoulder. And among the additions for Toledo this year is a guy who will be very familiar to those who closely follow the MAC and especially fans of Northern Illinois. But wide receiver, kick returner Trayvon Rudolph. He's a guy who in 4 years there in DeKalb, 153 catches, 2,047 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Also, kind of a Swiss Army knife. They gave the ball to him in the rush game quite a bit, ran for 474 yards in 4 seasons there, averaged almost 11 yards a carry. So he's a big play guy. He made the most of limited carries. And then there's the kickoff return game. This is a guy who's returned 62 career kickoffs during his career, average of a little over 23 yards a return. So he is a factor in the kick game. Actually had a 100-yard touchdown return in 2021 against Bowling Green in a victory by Northern Illinois. So Rudolph is a transfer from Northern Illinois who's going to be able to impact the game in a number of ways. You look at Toledo's schedule, and it's really a kind schedule looking it over. They don't play Ohio or Buffalo, two of the 2 teams that we've talked about as their fellow contenders for MAC supremacy. They're currently, you look at their schedule, they're about a 7.5-point underdog in their season opener at Kentucky. So that's a game that you would expect them to, have a chance to win, maybe a 20% chance, but certainly very feasible. And if they win that game, they'll be in really good shape to get over this total of 8.5. But other than that game where they're a little more than a touchdown underdog, I've got them as a 2.5-point favorite at Washington State in late October. And then their game, the second Saturday in November at Miami of Ohio, currently have that lined as a pick 'em. Other than that, their other 9 games, they project to be favored by 6 points or more. So I actually make season win totals on most teams in college football. I'm close on most of them. Toledo, though, I made 9 heavily juiced to the over, and here we are getting 8.5, fairly heavily juiced to the over. I like Toledo to win 9 or more games. This looks like a 9-3 football team to me. Toledo over 8.5 regular season wins, -152 today at Bet Rivers.
Don't tell Big Blue Country in Lexington that they have a lot coming back. They don't care. They just know if a MAC team or a group of 5 team comes in and beats them in an SEC venue, they won't be too happy with Coach Stoops there. And you wonder about Jason Candle now in his 10th year, if he's going to get the attention of some of the other clubs. And look, he also had to stop at Mount Union. And they win a lot of games there as well at a lower level. So, again, 10 years, 10 winning seasons at Toledo for the Toledo Rockets and Jason Candle. Let's go out to the Mountain West Conference now, the San Jose State Spartans. Ken Niumatalolo, boy, this was an interesting hire. And, he came over from, of course, he had such a long run at Navy and brought a lot of respectability. He was the one that really rebuilt it to respectability up in Annapolis in 7-6 in his first year. Not bad. Were they running at that wing bone or that triple option? No, they were throwing it all over the place. The spread and shed as they were throwing. And they made a quarterback switch midseason as well. Their quarterback, he threw for over 300 yards a game the last 7. He is back with a host of offensive starters, a handful there. They got 5 on defense as well. They again, about half of the roster back, including Egypt. But the schedule is so much different from last year. Last year, they played the 4 top finishers in the Mountain West. This year, they avoid the big 2, and being Boise State and UNLV. All that put together, this looks like another winning season for the San Jose State Spartans. So over 7.5, I think they could easily go 8, and they'll get trip up, and when they go to Austin, Texas, that's fine, but they should be favored to beat Stanford. They beat them last year at the last game of the regular season. I think they'll only be that much tougher, as I think, Paul, you had Stanford as your weakest division or Power Four team in college football this year. 7.5 minus 107. 7.5 minus 107 is available right now at Bet Rivers. So, hey, light juice, a good number. We're going to go with the Spartans and Coach Ken Niumatalolo in his second year to go over that 7.5.
I'm not as brave as you, Jimmy. I'm just going to call him Coach Ken. So, but it just shows you how crazy college football can be sometimes. Before the beginning of the end there in Annapolis, it seemed like he was going to be there as long as he wanted to be at the Naval Academy as their head football coach, and then things went awry, and obviously he gets dismissed, and now he's at San Jose State. But a couple of years before, let's say the end at Navy, if someone would have said, Coach Ken, at the major college level, you're going to coach a receiver who has 104 receptions in a season like they did last year, you'd have thought, man,
Right.
that's crazy. But Nick Nash was that guy, 104 catches, over almost 1,400 yards, and he's gone. So that's a lot of productivity. But as you mentioned, Walter Eget back at quarterback, and you talked about the schedule. They avoid both Boise and UNLV. They get some teams that could contend for the upper half of that conference, get those teams at home, those teams being Air Force, Hawaii, and Fresno State. So I think the schedule lines up for them very nicely. This is a conference that behind Boise, man, it's wide open. I don't have it, it could be anybody for second place in that league. The team last year that was the second best team, UNLV, they've had a complete roster upheaval. There's a lot of excitement there with former Florida and Mississippi State head coach Dan Mullen about to start his first season there in Vegas. But there's a lot of questions as well. So, San Jose State, man, they're as good a bet as any probably to perhaps be the second fiddle in the MAC behind Boise. So I like your selection here of San Jose State going over 7.5 wins.
Paul, I don't know if you're like me who got it. And I don't know if it's therapy, like we like to see our bad beats get that replay on Monday night with on the bad beat segment with Scott Van Pelt. But that was one of them. I don't know if you remember the 100-yard pick six and this and that. It was San Jose State was rolling in that game and giving Boise a scare to win the game outright before the kind of house of cards fell through. But yeah, that's one that I remember last year as well. But yeah, that Nash guy, man, he was something. And so they really spread it around. It tells you something about these coaches who can go and aren't married to their system and will adjust their system to that fits their personnel. I mean, the military schools, you got to do it. I mean, it's real simple. So if you're too big to fit in a plane, you can't be on campus. So, I mean, they don't exactly have interior linemen growing on trees at the military academies. All right, Paul, you're going to go to another one that you think is going to finish at the top, another one who is favored to win their league this year. And that's the James Madison Dukes. So Bob Chesney in his second year up at James Madison. So and you look at it, there's a big drop off to win the Sun Belt after them at plus 250. ULL is plus 600. Georgia Southern plus 650. USA, South Alabama plus 700. Texas State plus 800. So after this one, it's a big clump of, I don't know, mediocrity, but it's a big dip and a big clump of competitors there. But James Madison, the odds makers, are clearly making the favorite here.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about James Madison's schedule first of all, and then also talk about their embarrassment of riches at the quarterback position. First of all, they play in the Sun Belt's Eastern Division, and they get all three of their chief challengers in the Eastern Division, those being Georgia Southern, Old Dominion, and Appalachian State at home there in Harrisonburg. So just really drew a nice schedule there, getting their three main competitors in that division on their home field. And then the quarterback position. Last year in the regular season finale, they unfortunately lost their starting quarterback, Alonzo Barnett, to a knee injury, a severe knee injury. He is still rehabilitating. He missed spring training. He is participating in fall drills, and they are really pleased with his progress. And it's very clear that at some point he's going to be cleared to play. I don't think it's going to be the season opener. It doesn't look like. But even if Barnett is not ready to go, They got a couple of other guys that have some experience at the collegiate level. And I'll start with Matthew Sluka. And this is a guy in 2023 who actually played for Chesney when both were at FCS Holy Cross. And Sluka is a big physical guy. He is a true dual threat quarterback. And he's the guy I think will be their starter to begin the season this year and might even go through the whole season as a starter. But for Chesney in 2023, they're at Holy Cross. I believe he passed for over 1,700, rushed for over 1,200 in a single season. So a true dual threat guy, almost 3,000 total yards there at Holy Cross. Then after the 2023 season, as many of the listeners and viewers will recall, he transferred to UNLV. He was the Rebels starter last year for the first 3 games of the season. And then he apparently became disillusioned about his NIL package. I don't know what the real details were there, but he felt like apparently he wasn't getting paid what he was promised. So he hit the road and only played 3 games of football last year, all 3 of those games being at UNLV. But he's reunited now with his former coach, Chesney, there in Harrisonburg with the James Madison Dukes. And then they've got a third guy who's got some experience at quarterback, a guy from FCS Richmond, a guy named Camden Coleman. He started a lot of games for the Spiders there in Richmond. So they've got some options, even if Barnett is not healthy right off the bat, but at some point he will be, and I think he'll contribute. But I just, love their quarterback position. You look at their lineup throughout, and I think they're a little bit better than all the other teams in that league. Chesney, again, now in his second year there in Harrisonburg. So I like James Madison at plus 250 there at Bet Rivers to win the Sun Belt Conference.
You notice a trend that we're doing with our picks, huh? It's all rainbows and sunshine. We just took it at the overs and the conference champions who advanced to the college football playoff: Boise State, Buffalo, Toledo, San Jose State, and James Madison. Well, I'll throw some rain on that parade because before I get to this guy in my under pick, of all the coaches we talked about, there were some really good ones and some really good ones that have been through the group of 5 classification, Division 1 AA. I mean, just the whole bit, FCS, all of the lower programs. I don't know if anybody did more with the resources they were handed to them than Bill Clark did in Alabama Birmingham. He took over a program that was dead, defunct. They didn't have one. And all he did from 2017 to 2022, that'd be like going, okay, you go 2-10, 3-9, and maybe get to 5-7 the third year. No, in 6 seasons, he went 52-26, won exactly 2/3 of his games over a program that was dead. Enter Trent Dilfer on ESPN, runs a quarterback camp. Fine. He's gone 7-17 the last 2 years, and it's a ugly looking 7-17. They're 4-8 and 3-9. They only have a handful of starters that return. They got a couple of random wins that should be a SWAC school in Alabama State and another one where they should win, but should be 2-6 going to at Rice, North Texas, South Florida, and at Tulsa. Problem is, if it's heavy loaded on the front end and you're not real good, you're going to get banged up as well. Football is a physical sport. You're going to lose some players, especially this one. And it just looks like this thing could really come apart at the seams in an ugly way. So the total is 4.5 at Bet Rivers right now, UAB. Man, it's a shame with Bill Clark. And Clark stepped aside. He had enough. But damn it, I guess Dilfer would already be gone if it was University of Auburn at Birmingham. They like to pay coaches not to coach a little bit more than Alabama, but it's UAB. But I'm not joking about how bad of a job and how ugly this program has gotten under Trent Dilfer. Give me the under 4.5 with the Blazers.
Yeah, I tell you talking about Bill Clark. I don't know. Obviously these coaches don't have the same size stick, so to speak. The programs that are tradition rich have the resources financially and otherwise, but I'm not sure anybody's done a better job than what Bill Clark did at UAB in the past 20 or 25 years in college football. And I say that seriously. That was a lose-lose situation, and he made the most of it. So what a job that he's done. Hindsight's obviously, you and I have been doing this a long time, so hindsight's obviously always 2020. But I will at least give UAB some credence for thinking outside the box. I mean, they went for a home run. They did something unconventional. They hired a guy that runs a quarterback camp in Trent Dilfer, a former NFL quarterback. And I think their thought process was this guy's going to be able to attract us some quarterback prospects that we normally otherwise wouldn't get. And then we'll build in the pieces around that quarterback. And if nothing else, we'll make a bowl game every once in a while, and we'll be exciting on offense because we'll have this nice quarterback and some receivers who want to play with this quarterback. It obviously hadn't panned out like that for UAB. It is a tough situation, as you mentioned, 7-17 in the 2 years there, 5-11 in league play and non-conference. They've got trips to Tennessee, a trip to Tennessee that's going to be ugly, and they also have to play at UConn. And that's going to be a difficult game for them as well on the road. They lose their top two receivers off a team that tends to be offensive. They lose 9 of their top 10 tacklers. So I think UAB's in for another long season, and this could be Trent Dilfer's last season there in Birmingham.
All right, so that's going to do it for our Group of 5 conference preview here on College Sports Rush YouTube channel. Again, we're doing it every Tuesday and Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern. We start with our picks.
I've got one more.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I wanted to get out of here. What you got, Paul?
So you're already getting ready to give all these winners out on week 0. You're ahead of the game, Jimmy. I know how you operate. You're thinking ahead. But we got to talk about those Florida International University Panthers. I think everybody's been waiting for that today. FIU, I jest slightly. You were talking about it's been kind of just rainbows and butterflies, until you just unloaded that under on UAB on our listeners. And I'm typically, my portfolio on regular season wins, I'm probably 90% unders. I don't throw a whole lot of overs out there. And I'm going to throw an under here on Florida International. They're currently under 5.5, or the 5.5 regular season wins, juiced to the under at -155 there at Bet Rivers. But looking at Florida International, this is a team that really got hit hard in the portal, and it's a recurring theme. But these group of 5s, they just get poached. They lose. Not only do they lose players, but they lose their best players. And looking at Florida International, they lost 7 players to Power 4 programs. And among those 7 players were all 3 of their first team selections to the All Conference USA team last year. So that's really tough. They've only been 13-35 across the last 4 seasons. They've gone 4-8 in each of their last 3 years. And they bring in a new first-year head coach in Willie Simmons. And those who have followed college football for a few years remember Willie Simmons as a quarterback. I know he played at Clemson. Might have made some other stops as well. But looking at this regular season win total for FIU of 5.5, they got to get to 6 wins to get over it, obviously. And I'm just not sure they're going to go 500 in regular season play. And I'm pretty comfortable that they won't, actually. I'm not going to get into each and every personnel move, personnel loss, but they lost their top 2 receivers. One of those being a guy who had almost 1,200 yards in receiving last year for FIU, that being Eric Rivers, who's now off to Georgia Tech. Defensively, not all through the portal, but defensively, they lose their top 8 tacklers. Those guys no longer part of the program. And one of those is linebacker Travion Barnes. He was the first team All-Conference USA pick. He's off to the Baylor Bears, where he's going to be a starter for Baylor. We'll see him on Friday night, August 29th, coming up in that showdown against Auburn. He's gone from FIU to the Big 12. 4 other FIU defenders have departed for Power 4 destinations as well, including 3/4 of their secondary. So they weren't all that great to begin with. They've lost their best players. Don't see how in the world this team wins 6 games. I like FIU under 5.5 regular season wins, -155, available today at Bet Rivers.
And of course, when Paul shared that with Penn State head coach James Franklin, he immediately scheduled them this year. So, I mean, that non-conference schedule, wow, big game, James. Well, the FIU to go under. Willie Simmons coming over from Prairie View, from the SWAC in the Houston area. So, where he had some success there, and now he's in South Florida. So we will see what it's just so hard. especially at these group of five programs. When you make a coaching change, I mean, it's bad when it's at the it's at the Power Four level. But man, it is really tough because it's just very difficult. That first year, you're just trying to get a roster, trying to get numbers, man. And by the time they make their coaching job, sometimes you're a little bit late to the game. That's why if you remember, about 3 years ago, Paul, when UConn hired Jim Moore early, and I mean they were so bad, but he got a jump on everybody and in this roster management. And no, they're no world beaters by any stretch, but man, they're way better than they were. They're one of the more improved programs. He's done a great job with limited resources in the state of UConn. All right, so that's going to do it. Well, yes, I'm ready to give out some picks. I'm ready to talk about some games for real. So is Paul. We'll be giving out picks for week 0 this week. Got to bet them. They're going to be on TV. It's just a lot of standalones, including that big one in Dublin between Iowa State and Kansas State. Both really good teams, both well-coached teams, both teams with experienced quarterbacks coming back. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott. We do it every Tuesday and Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday and Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern, right here at College Sports Rush YouTube channel. It's our college football pick-em show as we continue. We'll see you on Thursday right here at the College Sports Rush YouTube channel.